the May contest has officially started, and this contest means that for the month of May, every time you play a deck that has 4 copies of every card will earn you rewards, and potentially, if you get first place, then you'll win a chance to get a tribute card, which means that you'll be put into the game with your likeness. Now, essentially, what this means is that you can't run 3 copies of a card, or 2 copies or 1 copy. And in practice, this means that you're probably not going to be running a lot of tech cards that you would normally only run 1 of or 2 of. A tech card is a card that's not part of your main strategy. It's really something that's there to counter a strategy that you see a lot. And so by forcing you to play 4 of each card, you can really only run cards that are pretty much universally good, because if it's only good in niche situations, you're going to see it too often if you run 4 copies of them. So essentially, the way to the rewards for this contest are, for every win you get 5 shadow crystals, and every 25 wins you get 1 pick a card. Now, a pick a card, if you're not aware, is something where you can choose any card in the game and get it as a foil. This is really good for getting those legendary cards like Agnar into your deck. That would normally not be available at the merchant or cost a lot of gold at the merchant. Now, the other thing is that you have a new announcement, which is that recently, today, or actually yesterday, I believe, Agnar is now unbanned, and so you can now put Agnar into your deck, and maybe in the future I will make some videos about Agnar again. But anyway, some people have been wondering, what kind of deck should I use for this contest? Well, I've got a bunch of them, and one of them is Amber. So let's go and watch some videos of some matches where I play this Amber deck and try and use a 4-copy version of the Amber deck. Now, the reason I thought that Amber was a good choice for 4-copy is because Amber tends to want to run 4 copies of every card anyway. So I sacrificed a Layarian Knight. And I'll talk more about those choices later on, but for now, we'll just go over some of my sacrifice choices. I had 2 Layarian Knights, so sacrificing it was okay. I sacrificed the Crippling Blow for my second sacrifice because against Zaladar, I think anything like Crippling Blow is a little weaker because of the fact that your opponent, Zaladar, tends to run stuff like Sacrificial Lamb. I sacrificed Retreat because Zaladar tends to play low-cost allies, and Retreat is really good on high-cost allies that don't have an on-summon effect. So that's why I got rid of Retreat and Crippling Blow. Now here, I'm just going to play my Aldon the Brave, and interestingly here, I choose to go for the Jeweler's Dream over playing the Blood Frenzy or something. The reason is I figure my opponent has a lot of cards in hand, and so I can use Bad Santa to get 3 cards, while my opponent only gets 2 cards and can't draw for the start of the turn, so effectively, I'm only giving them 1 card. Here, my opponent goes ahead and uses the Zaladar ability to kill the Aldon. Now, I think that my opponent might have wanted to save the Aldon, the Zaladar ability, but I think here they wanted to basically keep the Frostflame Harpy alive. Now, of course, here we can just use Yari Marksman in combination with our weapon to kill the Harpy. So now we set up our Blood Frenzy, and so now we're in pretty good shape here. I think my opponent does something really smart, which is save the Zaladar ability. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're playing Amber is that you don't have to sacrifice that much. And one trick I use when playing Amber is I like to think, okay, I've got 5 resources plus 2 more resources from my weapon, Jeweler's Dream. Whenever I attack, I renew 2 resources. So for that reason, I think I have 7 resources, not 5 resources, and that helps me keep track of what I'm doing and maximizing my turn. There, our opponent uses his ability to clear 2 of our allies, and that really shows why it's sometimes very helpful to save your ability. There, I go ahead and Bad Santa. Now, I Bad Santa in situations usually where I feel like I just don't have anything else to do. I like saving Bad Santa until I kind of have to use it, because otherwise I'm just going to be passing that turn. So that's why I use the Bad Santa there. And then I just try and swarm the field with allies. Here, I'm going to sacrifice Blood Frenzy. I already have it, so I don't need another one. And now I do something. Now, one thing I do want to make clear is if you're going to do that combo, one of the things that synergizes really well is retreat plus Bad Santa. And the reason is you can retreat their ally, it goes to their hand, and then play Bad Santa, and they draw less cards because now the ally is in their hand, clogging their hand. But to do this combo, you have to play retreat before you play Bad Santa. One of the most common mistakes I see when people try to pull off this retreat Bad Santa combo is they play the Bad Santa and then they try to play retreat, but their opponent's hand is full. And you cannot retreat an ally if your opponent's hand is full because it sends it to the hand and they have a hand limit of 7 cards. So you have to play retreat, then play Bad Santa. Anyway, I set up with Jeweler's Dream last turn just to be efficient with resources, and here we can just now have enough resources to summon the Seductress and then the Masked Bandit here. So overall looking very strong here, and this is where Amber really excels. You're getting so much advantage from playing all of your cards, from your Blood Frenzy. You're getting so much draw that every turn you can summon a bunch of these weaker allies and kind of swarm the field. And yes, your allies are weaker, but at the same time, you summon so many of them that your opponent can't kill all of them. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just trying to swarm the field with these cheap allies that have strong effects. Yari Marksman, for example, dealing 2 damage to an ally and letting us kill that False Blood cultist. Yari Marksman works really great as crowd control because it gets a bonus when your opponent has a lot of allies out. Now, of course, Zaladar really does excel at picking off allies with 4 health, and that is most of the allies in our deck. So even though we're spamming the board with so many allies, it's not always gonna work completely, but yeah. Anyway, here we're gonna go ahead and yeah, I make a decision here to I think I just go face here. Yeah, so I just went face because I know that my opponent could be running Sacrificial Lamb or something, but here I think my opponent has to use all their resources to either heal or deal with my board, or else they're in a really bad spot, and I think they didn't draw into the cards they really needed there. They really needed to be killing my allies to avoid me going face. And this is one of the things in Amber, you have to kind of decide when to go and hit the face and go for face damage, and when to kind of fight for the board. And when you're getting your opponent down to like 10, 9, 8 health, you want to go face so that you put in so much pressure on their face that, yeah, they can draw cards, yeah, they can set up, but you're just going to kill them next turn, and you're going to force your opponent to make some bad moves because of that. Alright, anyway, before we watch another match, I do want to do a quick shout out. Now, if you've been watching the channel, and you may know that I also design some board games, and one of these games is going to be on crowdfunding very shortly. It's called Chroma Mix, and so this is what it looks like. And if you are at all interested in board games, this is a game that's called an engine builder. You play your color cards and they give you more cards, and you're trying to find these combos to eventually win the game. You're mixing cards together and forming stronger cards, and so it's a lot of fun. And I'm demoing the game if you're interested, so you can find me on Telegram if you want to do a demo, or if you're at all interested, I would really greatly appreciate if you click the follow button, create an account, and essentially follow the project. It's totally free, and what that means is it's gonna, first of all, give you updates on the game as it develops, and second of all, it's gonna help the algorithm and get the game out there more. So I would really appreciate a follow on the GamePound page. Anyway, let's go back to the video. We are playing Amber here, and let's see if we can find another good video here. Here is one against a Banebow. So kind of a similar kind of style to the Zaladar, but yeah, this deck goes well against Control. It does well against a lot of different decks because of how fast it can be, and even against mid-range decks and other aggro decks, you've got a lot of removal for that's relatively cheap, like Crippling Blow. Now, I do like to sacrifice the Crippling Blow early, especially against Shadow Heroes that have ways to kill their own allies. Here I go ahead and play the Blood Frenzy on turn 3. Actually, the reason I didn't go ahead and play Bad Santa on turn 2 is because I just wanted to have an ally out, just so that, against something like Banebow, if you wait too long to play allies, then it can get a little bit hard to retake the board. Okay, here was, I'm a little behind, so let me pause a little bit so I can talk a little bit more. Okay, so a lot happened. Essentially, I thought it was a good time to play the Bad Santa then, because even though I have Blood Frenzy, I could still play it and then play the Layarian Knight, clear my hand, and now I'm going to draw 2 more cards at the start of my next turn. So it was a good time to play the Bad Santa because my opponent had a pretty full hand already. Now, the other major decision I made there was to play the Layarian Knight, knowing full well that it was this guy, because most of the time it's going to be Camouflaged Foe if it's a 3-cost trap. Now, the reason I summoned the Layarian Knight and then allow that to happen is because, again, I get to draw a card and I can maybe force my opponent to play the Banebow ability. That's what I really want to happen. If my opponent Banebow ability is here, they're not going to be able to Banebow later on when it might be more important. That's also why I go ahead and I crash into the Camouflaged Foe. I'm well aware that my opponent can basically clear my board basically no matter what I do. And so I just want to set this up so that next turn I can play Yari Marksman and at the very least clear this Camouflaged Foe if it is the right move to do so. Anyway, that's going to allow my opponent to essentially clear the board. They're going to play Clockwork Soldier and essentially get a free 3-cost 3/3 ally out there. That can be a little annoying, but I did succeed in what I wanted to do, which is my goal there was to get rid of my opponent's Banebow ability. And one of the downsides to Clockwork Soldier is it's a great target for retreat. They spent a Shadow Energy to summon that, so they lost the Shadow Energy, and now it's back in their hand, and they have to summon it again. So that was quite nice there. My opponent goes ahead and plays Slithering Viper, which is quite strong there for them. Now here I'm going to make a pretty weird move. I summon the Jeweler's Dream, and I'll buff it with Amber, and I don't actually kill the Camouflaged Foe, I hit face. And the reason is I really want to get rid of this stealth ally, Slithering Viper. Slithering Viper has stealth, and that's just really annoying to deal with otherwise. I don't want to retreat it because then it's just going to be summonable again. It's got a very strong on-summon effect. So that's why I just decided, you know what, I'm going to Yari Marksman it and just get rid of it now. And that meant that I could not go ahead and essentially kill the Camouflaged Foe with the Jeweler's Dream because I needed that 1+X damage. Now, okay, I'm a little behind again, but I sacrificed Blood Frenzy there because I'm fully planning to Bad Santa. I'm just clearing my hand a little bit and making sure I'm going to kill something with Yari Marksman, getting that Trapper out of the way. Now I can go ahead and Bad Santa, and then I can go ahead and kill the Camouflage Foe with the weapon and summon the Aldon here just to save resources. We run 4 Aldon the Brave, so I don't mind throwing it out there and having it potentially die. Soul Seeker comes out. Now this is really dangerous for Amber because if we try to rush down our opponent, we don't really want this game to go that long. So him having that health gaining tool is really, really bad for us. That's actually why I'm going to do something a little interesting here. So retreat is normally something you play on your opponent's allies, but here I'm retreating the Yari Marksman, and the reason I do that is twofold. First of all, I don't want to run out of allies to play, and so bouncing it back means I have more allies to just cycle through, I don't want to run out of allies in my deck, basically. The second reason is my opponent heals 3 when it kills an ally, so I don't want to crash it into the Soul Seeker and basically have it die, because then my opponent will have lost 2 health, but also gain 3 health. Anyway, my opponent plays Gorlak here. This is a highly underrated card. This is really great. Especially for Baduru or for Logan. Warriors and Hunters love this card. Essentially what it does is it buffs the weapon attack when you're attacking allies by 1 attack. And so that's why my opponent was able to use the Soul Seeker to kill the Layarian Knight. On top of that, it heals everything by 1 and buffs all the allies by 1 attack. So this is a really dangerous card to have out. Luckily, I do have retreat in hand, so I'm able to bounce it back. retreat is perfect against these high cost allies that don't have unsummon abilities. So this is the perfect target for retreat. And now we're just going to retreat it back to the hand. My opponent's going to have to pay another 6 resources to summon that. We're going to get rid of the Soul Seeker with the Jeweler's Dream. We don't want to be damaging our hero. And then here, I'm just going to play Yari Marksman because I just want to spam the board with allies. I think my opponent is going to have a hard time killing all of these allies. And here we have a situation where, yeah, it turns out that we're able to keep all 3 of the allies we were going to play, which is great. So here I go for the Layarian Seductress, and I just kill the Low Void Leviathan because I plan on using a Shadow ability this turn, which is a Jeweler's Dream, and so I wanted to kill that first before it buffed itself. We're going to go in, deal another attack to the face, summon the Layarian Knight. Now we've got a really strong board, and I'm feeling very good about this because Banebow doesn't play any board clears, and our opponent realizes this and concedes. So as you can see, I've been doing pretty well. I haven't run into any Agnars. I think this deck might actually have a good chance against Agnar. Some of the first games I played, I actually kind of had a rocky start, but you can kind of see later on I kind of went on a larger win streak. So this deck is really capable of those win streaks. It's capable of being very strong, and so I highly suggest it if you're looking for a deck to play for this May contest that requires you to play 4 copies of every card in your deck. So let me go over the deck list. We're running 4 Layarian Knight and 4 Masked Bandit. Normally, I think you would want to only play 4 2-cost allies, but especially in Amber, you want to be applying a lot of pressure, and 2-cost is actually the special number in this deck. The reason is that when you have cards that only cost 2, you can play them after renewing 2 resources with Jeweler's Dream. So Amber loves cards that cost 2. It means that your turn 4 can be Jeweler's Dream and then playing Layarian Knight or Jeweler's Dream, Masked Bandit, Jeweler's Dream, Crippling Blow. So you really want 2-cost cards in this deck, and 2-cost allies are really good. So we run 4 Layarian Knight, 4 Masked Bandit. These are just generically good human allies. Well, Masked Bandit is neutral, but still, they're just generically good 2-cost allies. You could replace them with other 2-cost allies. It really doesn't matter that much. I just like Masked Bandit and Layarian Knight personally, but you can go with whatever suits you better. For Aldon the Brave, again, we have the 4 minimum contest, really, and so we have to play 4. I almost would play 4 anyway, because especially in Amber, Aldon is such a powerful card. We're going to be spamming the board with a lot of low-cost allies, especially with the Jeweler's Dream renewing stuff, that +1 attack to everything is really crucial to see often. Your opponent is probably going to kill Aldon first, and so you really want to have 4 copies of them so that when it dies, you can replace it. It's very good at 4 in this particular deck. Normally for unique ally, I would say 3 or 2 is probably better, but Aldon is just good enough to be run at 4, and obviously there's the contest as well. Next up is Layarian Seductress. Now, Layarian Seductress is a really strong ally because it's pretty cheap at only 3 cost, so it synergizes well with our deck that kind of likes to run low to the ground, and also it disables an ally for a turn. Now, they have to have more resources or equal resources to you, so that means that you're normally going to be wanting this card when you're going second, and when you're going first, you can probably safely sacrifice this card a bunch. But anyway, this is a great card for that control, and you just out-tempo your opponent. This deck is all about tempo. It's all about swarming the board with allies and winning that way. So Layarian Seductress is an excellent card in this deck. Finally, for the allies is Yari Marksman. Yari Marksman is still a great card. It's always been very good, but even after the nerfs, it's still an excellent board control card. It gains damage. It deals damage to an opposing ally equal to the number of opposing allies +1. So essentially, if your opponent has 1 ally out, it deals 2 damage to it. That's really, really good. Now, if your opponent has something like 5 allies out, you're going to deal 6 damage to any of their allies. So this is an excellent card that ends up really shining when your opponent plays a bunch of allies. Now, one card that really synergizes well with that is Crippling Blow, because you're going to Crippling Blow allies. Crippling Blow says that ally has 0 attack. Now, because of that, your opponent might have 4 or 5 allies out, and if 2 or 3 of them have Crippling Blow on them, 2 or 3 of their allies are completely useless. So then you can Yari Marksman the 4th ally, get that huge damage there, but your opponent still only has effectively no allies out because Crippling Blow is making them useless. So these two cards are a great package together. Now, I think Crippling Blow is probably going to be a little better against those human heroes that aren't killing their own allies. You do have to be a little careful against decks that have stuff like Sacrificial Lamb. Now, that's a card that lets you kill an ally to draw cards, and Crippling Blow kind of loses its potency against decks running Sacrificial Lamb, but it's still an excellent card. Again, it's that magic 2 cost that Amber really likes. This is another magic card for Amber, Retreat. It only costs 2, so it works extremely well in this deck, and it is just an extremely good tempo card. Your opponent plays these high-cost allies. Well, sorry, they're going back to the hand, and meanwhile, we're going to just be swarming the board with a bunch of allies, and you have nothing out because we retreated your high-cost ally. Now, again, this is working best on high-cost allies that don't have on-summon abilities. So, if your opponent is running a lot of low-cost allies that have good unsummon effects, maybe you want to sacrifice these. But this is really good against a lot of decks that run strong allies that basically are high cost and don't have unsummons. Now, it synergizes extremely well with Bad Santa, as we saw in some of the games today, because you can get a card into their hand, clog their hand, then Bad Santa. Now, they're going to draw less cards off of Bad Santa than they normally would. Now, the other reason Retreat is useful is you can retreat your own allies. That's not usually as common, but I think that's a really important element of this card. It's just really flexible, gives you a lot of utility. So we're running it on 4. Blood Frenzy is amazing in this deck because it's another way to just keep drawing cards and keep your engine going. You're going through a lot of cards in this deck. You're really just playing a ton of low-cost allies, and you need the draw that can sustain this engine. And yes, you can go low to the ground, and often we do go low to the ground in Amber. We run, I think you could easily get away with staying on 5 resources, but I think Blood Frenzy is just going to help you sacrifice more because you're going to be drawing more, and these two combined is going to basically make the bulk of your draw and going to let you run through so many low-cost allies. Not seeing Blood Frenzy early can be a little rough because then you're not getting those draws, and so you might have to play a little bit more conservatively, stay on 4 or 5 resources, and kind of wait to draw into Blood Frenzy or Bad Santa. Now, this is the start of the deck, Jeweler's Dream. It says when you attack, you renew 2 resources. With Amber's ability, it's a perfect combination because you're going to get a strong weapon that can deal with a lot of stuff, but it's also going to be giving you resources to play your allies. This is a really old archetype. It's tried and true. It's always been a great combo, so this deck is no exception to that. Now, if you don't really care about the May contest, maybe you're viewing this video and it's no longer May, or maybe you're viewing this video and you just don't want to kind of fool around with some decks, I would say that you want to run some tech cards. And so a couple tech cards that I'm not running just because of the contest are cards like Smashing Blow. This is a card you want to run 1 or 2 of because weapons and armors that your opponent runs can be quite dangerous, and there are a lot of decks in the meta that you just want to get rid of their weapons or their armors that are high cost. Stuff like Baduru, this is great against, and against stuff like King's Pride, any defensive armors, this can really give you an edge. Another one is Enrage. Enrage is really good against mages and anything that deals direct damage. You normally only want to be running 1 copy of Enrage, and so because of the contest we can't actually run Enrage, but this is one I would run as a 1 of. Reserve Weapon is another card I would probably run as a 1 of because yes, you have 4 weapons, but sometimes, especially in this version of the deck, you basically cannot sacrifice Jeweler's Dream because you only have 4 copies of it. But if you ran Reserve Weapon, you could run basically a 5th copy of Jeweler's Dream, and that would be really nice, but because of the contest, we can't actually do that. Another card that a lot of Ambers run, if I can find it, is Spectral Saber. This is Anti-Attachment Hate. It's another very common card that Amber likes to run on 1 or 2. This is a card that I would definitely recommend as a 1 or 2 of, but because of the contest, we can't run it. It basically, you can use it as a weapon, or you can use it to remove attachments. Desperate Tactics, really good card. This is another one or two of. It basically sacrifices a weapon, and then you deal that much damage equal to its attack plus 1. So essentially, it's like a fireball in this deck. You sacrifice a Jeweler's Dream, deal 4. That can really help you win those games against those heroes that kind of are a little grindier, and maybe you need that last push to kind of win there. Okay, one last card I'm going to talk about that I cut from this deck because of the fact that it is the contest of 4 copies minimum is Visca. This is the perfect curve topper for something like Amber because it's a haste ally that deals 3 damage to an opponent. It's great anti-weapon tech, and this is just a very solid card to finish out games with. And a lot of times you can just summon this and your opponent can't kill it, and so it can often get 2 attacks in. So this is another card that you often run 2 of in Amber, but I just cut it because of the contest. So that kind of covers Amber. This is a pretty standard deck. It's been tried and true. It's something that people have played for a very long time and something you're going to keep seeing into the future because I doubt this deck will ever be bad. It's just such a solid deck that, you can't go wrong with it, really. And it's survived many metas. I think I've seen this deck in tournaments since I started playing, essentially. So, I highly recommend checking this deck out. If you're looking for a fun deck to play that's competitive and you're looking for a deck for the 4-card contest, check it out. This is the deck code, and I'm also going to put it in the link in the description below. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.